Welcome back to Bargaining and War. This lecture is on war's bargaining range. In the last lecture, we saw a mathematical proof that showed us that there always exist settlements that both sides prefer to war. But due to the technical calculations, it might not be exactly obvious why that's the case. So all we're going to do in this lecture is take the mathematical logic that we went through last time and put it into a bunch of pictures to visualize the problem. And once you have that visualization, it should be clear why there exist these settlements and why we should expect states to be settling their differences at the negotiation table rather than on the battlefield. So let's go ahead and just start visualizing what's going on. To begin with, I'm going to draw a 0 to 1 interval. 0, 1. Why is that? Well, before we've been thinking about a value standardized to 1 that the parties have in conflict with one another. And the way that we're going to think about this is a strip of territory. Specifically, we're going to suppose that the value 0 represents the capital for state A, and the value 1 represents B's capital. And so you could think about the dispute between A and B is all of this territory that's in between, where A wants to draw the border as close to B's capital as possible. This is A's ideal point. And B, on the other hand, would like to draw it all the way on the other side. So A is always happier when we're moving things this way, and B is always happier when we're moving things this way. Okay, so just again, imagine this strip of territory that's between these two states, and that's the thing that they're bargaining over. Okay. Well, we have some components that comprise the value of war, so let's start plotting them on this 0 to 1 interval. To start with, think about the distribution of power, in other words, P, the probability that A wins the war. Well, P is a number between 0 and 1, and so as I've done there, I've plotted it somewhere on this interval. It looks like it's about halfway, but again, this is not going to be something that we are actually saying is 1/2. It's just some value between 0 and 1. So it could just as easily be over here, or over here, or over here, and so forth. Let's think about what that value P means. With probability P, A wins and takes the entire prize. And with probability 1 minus P, B wins and takes the entire prize. So in expectation, if the states were to fight a war, then what A would be receiving, again, in expectation, is everything to the left of P. So this value represents, right here, from 0 to P, A's expected share. Of course, if they fight, it won't ever actually get that amount. It'll either get 0 or it'll get 1. But in expectation, because it's only winning with probability P, the value that it's getting is that interval. Of course, B's expectation is everything to the right of that. And you'll notice here that this interval is sized 1 minus P, which again matches what we've been thinking about before. 1 minus P is B's probability of victory. Thus, it is the amount that B expects to receive if the states fight. Now, keep in mind, the payoff in total is not what you expect to receive in terms of the bargaining good. If you fight a war, there's also a cost associated with doing that. So let's plot that on this interval in the following way. Let's think about this quantity right here, representing A's costs. That makes this value here P minus CA. Well, think about what that means. Everything to the left of P minus CA is A's war payoff. What that then means is that any settlement to the right of P minus CA is a settlement that A prefers to war. We can do the same thing for B, and this is the single part of this illustration that sometimes confuses students. Let's think about the value CB. I'm going to draw it right here. Well, that maps into this interval as P plus CB. So the part that's a little bit confusing for students is that we're adding CB to this, even though we subtract out the cost for war. But if we think about what's going on in this interval right here, we will understand why we're adding CB to that value. The size of this interval is, well, to measure any size of an interval, you take the endpoint and you subtract out the beginning point. So the endpoint is 1. The beginning point is P plus CB, which means this is equal to 1 minus P minus CB, which we've seen before is B's war payoff. And so we're adding CB here because we ultimately need to be subtracting it out of this equation. But now that we've represented B's war payoff as everything to the right of P plus CB, we now know that everything to the left is a settlement that B prefers to war. You'll notice that there's a gap in between. This value right here is what we call the bargaining range. Why is that? Well, any one value within that bargaining range is going to be mutually preferable to war. Think about this value right here. Well, A is getting not only what it would expect to get via war, but it's also getting this extra quantity here. So A is satisfied with that deal. Meanwhile, B is getting everything to the right of P plus CB, which is its war payoff. So it's getting that, and it's getting this amount as well. So B is also happy to accept. And again, anything within that interval from P minus CA to P plus CB is an agreement that is mutually preferable to war. And precisely because CA and CB are positive values, and so when we subtract out those costs, we make war inefficient, we have the existence of this range. Moreover, the size of the range, you'll notice, goes from CA plus CB. So the size of the bargaining range is equal to the inefficiency of war, the sum costs of war. So if we have more expensive wars, then we have a larger bargaining range, which would make it easier if we were throwing a dart at the negotiation table, and that's how we were going to be drawing out whatever the agreement was. We would be more likely to hit an agreement that both parties prefer to war. The larger the costs, the larger the bargaining range. I want to leave a slight caveat before we finish. You may then think that if we have larger costs, we have a larger bargaining range, it should be easier to get a deal done. And that's going to be true a lot of the time for a lot of the models that we work through, but it is not a universal law. And what we're going to see way later in this course is, in fact, situations where if you increase the cost of war, you can increase the probability of war. Counterintuitive thing. You can make war less attractive and end up getting more of it. And that's going to, again, in the long term, highlight the importance of actually having a model and writing down comparative statics. And that's where I'm going to leave you here, with this idea that we have gone through a couple of different iterations of this proof to show that there exist these settlements that are mutually preferable to war. What we haven't yet done is create some sort of structure to use our standard game theoretical tools and be able to solve for equilibrium. And so that's what we're going to be working toward next. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope to see you next time. Take care.